Honestly, never, ever in my life, ever thought I'd be writing to you. My name is Jackie, and I am 19 years old. I live in Saskatchewan, Canada. I found out about your website on the radio. I was listening on Halloween, and they said that this was the coolest website to go on. I started reading the stories in my spare time. Right now, I'm about halfway done the second page. I haven't been reading much for about 2 weeks. Well, anyway, here goes my story, and I speak nothing but the truth. Last night, I was hanging out with my friend at her house, and my boyfriend called and said Grandma was feeling very sick, and that my dad and mom wanted me to spend the night there, in case anything happened. So I called my grandma, and she told me that she was going to bed, and that I didn't need to rush over. She said she would leave the door unlocked, and I could come in at any time. I got to her place about 12 a.m., and I stayed up until 1:30 a.m. Then I went to bed in the room across the hall from her. It helped me that I could hear her breathing, because then I knew she was okay. I woke up in the morning, and my arm was numb because I had been lying on it. I woke up and started to shake it out. I opened my eyes and looked up. The blind was almost shut, but I could see out the last 2 inches that it was getting bright out. Then I got a weird feeling because I couldn't hear my grandma at all. I also couldn't hear her up. I was just thinking, I should roll over and look towards the door and the clock and see what time it was and get up and check on her. Just as I was about to roll over, and by this time, I was very awake, a cat jumped up on my bed. I did not see it. I was facing the window with my blankets over my head. It jumped up just behind my knees. My grandma does not have a cat. I knew right away that it was Slippers, or as my grandma likes to say, good old Slips. Slippers died about 15 years ago. Well, anyway, she jumped up on the bed and walked up to my shoulder and laid down on my upper arm. I totally felt that. I was thinking, no way, this is not happening to me. I was totally paralyzed. I couldn't open up my eyes or even wiggle my fingers. Then there was a very loud, sort of rushing noise in my ears. It was like a cross between a blank TV station and the furnace times 100. I was not paralyzed with fear because up until now, I wasn't scared. Then when I couldn't move, I felt totally terrified. I thought maybe something had happened to my grandma in the night, and this was a way of saying goodbye or something. Then I totally forgot about the cat, and I thought that I really wanted to get up and check on my grandma, but the cat and noise were still there, and I still couldn't move. When I couldn't move, I was thinking about your website, and I totally understood how terrified people can be when this happens. I was just trying to think if there could be a rational explanation for why I couldn't move. I know that I was not so scared that I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. Then the noise went away, and the cat was suddenly gone, and I could move again. I quickly curled up in a ball and laid there for a few minutes until I was sure that whatever it was gone. I did not want to see a shadowy figure in the room. Then I quickly flew out of bed and into the hall. By this time, I heard a radio was on, so I knew that my grandma was up. I was standing in the hall, and I realized I had no pants on, so I turned around quickly and flipped on the light. I put my pants on and ran into the kitchen. I sure scared my grandma because it was 8 a.m. and I didn't have work until 11. As soon as I got into the kitchen, the phone rang. My grandma could tell something was bothering me, so she rushed my aunt off the phone. I told her everything, and she believed me. Then she started to tease me a bit and say, "Kitty gonna get you," over and over. But she told me she has never seen or felt Slippers, but she has heard my dog Flanagan scratching at the door and breathing. He has been dead for about a year. At 9:30, I drove my grandma to my aunt's house. I went in, and my aunt said that it looked like I was sick too. I told her that Slippers had come to visit me, and she thought this was so cool. She told me about all the stories of our cats that died, came to visit her. She told me that she feels cats come off the bed and purr in her ear, and there is no one there. And she also told me that she was downstairs, and she looked at the steps and saw one of her dead cats sitting there, and another one of her dead cats ran up past it. She told me that she had a cat that would drag stuff around the house and leave it in weird places. After it died, she started finding stuff in weird places, like mitts on the steps and shoes in the living room, just like the cat did when it was alive. Then she asked my grandma to remember about how for a long time, after their dog Sandy died, they could hear his nails tapping up and down the hall floor. Once, they both heard it at the same time. My aunt felt bad for me that my experience was so spooky. She said she has never been able to move. She said that poor old Slips must have felt really bad that she scared me. She also said that I must have scared the cat, and that it was too bad that we couldn't have comforted each other like she does with her cats. I went to work and told my friends. They all believed me. 2 of them started telling me super weird stuff that happened to them. One girl never told anyone in her life what happened to her because she was scared that no one would believe her. She decided to tell me because it was obvious I would understand. I will have to get them to write to you. One girl even has a book about everything that happened to her. Thanks so much for reading this. I know you will understand. Writing to you was the first thing I thought of when it happened. Maybe reading your stories heightened my sense of awareness or something. It did not heighten my imagination. Thanks again. I live in London, Ontario, Canada. I moved into a complex near the beginning of September with a very tiny history altogether. The complex itself is fairly new, and as far as I've been able to find out, only has had 1 death, and the house it happened in has no report of any mysterious incidents. With my stay at Unit 40, I've experienced a couple of things that seem quite odd, and I'm not alone. My mom has experienced a few things as well. All that has seemed to happen seemed to be directed towards the entire family, where in contrast to your story, the spirits seem to be focused on you. The things that have happened have not been harmful or even seemingly of evil intentions. If there is a spirit at all, it seems to only want to be recognized as being there. I picked up the feeling of someone being out of place, first I think. It all started with the basement door. Someone will close it tightly and go upstairs or to another part of the house. But whenever someone returned to the door, it would be open only 1.5 inches every time. At the top of the stairs, on the upper floor of the house, there is some sort of a wall that is only about 4 feet in height. Whenever standing there, I would get the odd feeling as if I was standing in someone else's place. Sometimes to the point of feeling nauseous or overwhelmed with an intense throbbing in my muscles. When informing my mom that I felt someone or something was also with us, she sort of shrugged it off. But it wasn't until she told me that the reason for the door opening was that people weren't closing it tightly, that the door opening stopped completely. After that, things that weren't so easily put off started happening. One night, I went downstairs to do the laundry. By our washer and dryer, we have 2 sinks. One, the closet to the washer, is always filthy. The one next to it is spotless. And out of habit, I took a glance into the sink to make sure nothing was there. And of course, nothing was. Well, before I could even finish putting the laundry on, my dad came to the door. My mom and dad are not divorced, just separated. He stayed for no longer than 30 minutes, seeing as though the other member of the family besides my mother and I, my brother, 10 years old, 11 in March, was not there. When he left, I went back down to finish the laundry. Taking another glance in the sink, I saw, which quite frankly terrified me, a tiny footprint pressed into the dirt. Seeing as no one beside me had been in the basement in the brief 30 minutes I was away, I got quite scared. Trying to think of all the things logically, I kept coming to the question, why? It was most definitely a footprint, slightly smaller than my brother's. The footprint is still in the sink. We're keeping it until we can take a photograph of it. And even if a little kid did it, and I just didn't notice it before, with the bad lighting and all, why the sink? There are no windows in the basement, and the only way to get to the basement is through the house. And with 250-pound Roddies, not too many little kids are happy about going through our house. Another thing that bothered me was that it was only 1 foot. If a little kid did it, how did it get into the sink in the first place? The edge of the sink comes up to my little brother's neck. Another happening was my mom experienced something. She was upstairs sleeping, and I was sleeping on the futon in the living room. The next morning, my mom came downstairs and complained about not being able to sleep last night due to the fire alarm repeatedly going off. She said it happened twice. The first time she stayed in the bed. The second, she went downstairs to investigate, and nothing happened. The latest thing happening was involving my mother as well. I was down in the living room once again, and she was upstairs half asleep. She informed me the following day that the night had been too stressful to her due to hearing what she thought was me going up and down the stairs all night. She told me she was about to call out to me, seeing as if I was coming to bed, when she heard me stop outside her door, which was only open slightly, and act as if I was trying to hear what was going on in the bedroom. I sleep in the living room because I cannot fall asleep in my mother's room. I don't sleep in my room because the cats have it taken over. Whenever I'm in my mom's room, I hear scratching on the wall. Well, more like fingernail tapping and creaking. It's so bad and so realistic, I fear turning my head towards the sound, thinking I'll see someone standing there. With all that has happened and all the pets I own, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 1 rat, 1 parrot and fish, the only one that has responded to anything was my 1 cat Spooky, who is black and about 6 or so years old. Whenever Spooky is out and about the living room area, she becomes quite agitated. Her emotions are if there is a fly or bug pestering her. The way her back jumps and hair stands on the certain parts of her body is interesting. She growls and hisses, then jumps away from the area. Then she seems to act fine. I'm not sure if there's more to what is happening that I'm not seeing, or if I'm seeing too much into everyday things. However, whenever I put off our experiences, my mind drifts back to the footprint in the sink. My mom and I get the feeling that the spirit, if one, is one of a young girl about the age of 12 or 13. When asking someone that has had a few ghostly experiences of their own, an older woman, she says nobody has had anything happen to them in Unit 40, but one time, one of the previous owners took a picture of a porcelain doll on a couch, and in the photo, the doll was glowing. The most unusual thing about this, though, is that it was like brighter than the flash itself, to the point that the doll was just a blur. But the woman said that the people were just weird themselves, and not to worry about anything. My cousin, Brian, and I were extremely close for as long as I can remember. He was about 12 years older than I am. He would go camping with my family a couple times a year and play Santa for me during Christmas. I have a lot of great memories with him. In October of '92, Brian died of a drug overdose. My family suspected that he had been using drugs because he wasn't as involved with family like he had been, stopped going camping and spending Christmas with us so he could play Santa. He was very into boxing and was pretty popular among people in Scranton, Pennsylvania. When he died, I took it the worst. I was in 5th grade and had to get counseling from officials at school because I cried all day, and I even mentioned to people that I wanted to be with him. So my family thought I was thinking about suicide. At Brian's funeral, I never went up to his coffin. I couldn't face the fact that he was lying there dead. He loved pulling pranks, and I remember throughout the whole wake, wishing he would jump up and say it was all a joke. For a while, I felt guilty of his death because I thought that if I knew him about using drugs, I would be able to talk to him, and he would have ended his addiction because of me. After suspecting his drug use for a while, my family found out it was true, but they kept it from me because I looked to him as my role model, and they didn't want me to hate him. My cousin Chip, Brian's older brother, got married in '97, and I was a bridesmaid. In the church, there was one section of the pews that was blocked off, so the photographer had easy access for taking pictures. In the middle of the ceremony, I saw Brian sit down in the section that was blocked off for the photographer. I couldn't believe I was seeing him because, well, he was dead and had been for a while now. I kept looking at my mother to see if she noticed him, but it was obvious that she didn't from the looks of concern on her face towards me. All I did was look at Brian and look at my mom, and tears would stream down my face. My mom kept mouthing to me, "What's wrong?" Brian stayed for most of the ceremony, and when it was almost over, he looked at me, smiled, and left. After ceremony was over, and the bridal party had ended, I ran out of the church, hysterical, crying, but I did so that no one noticed. I'm sure people assumed I was crying because of the joyous occasion, not because they saw a ghost. My mom met me outside and asked me what was wrong. I told her Brian was there, and she didn't believe me. She asked me what he was wearing, thinking I was lying. I couldn't come up with just anything. I told her what he wore from head to toe. She didn't believe me until she realized the suit I described to her was what he wore in his coffin the day he was buried. I believe wholeheartedly that he was there, and he only let me see him because he knew I wasn't over his death, and he wanted me to be okay. It was his way of showing me that he was okay, and I didn't have to worry about him. To me, it was his way of showing us that he still thought about our family, and that no matter what, he would be there for all of us on our special days. I always had a hard time thinking about him, so he was brought up on holidays, or even when my family was together. It was in those critical moments I had to leave the room if I didn't want to burst into tears. I've had a lot of closure since seeing him. I'm now able to talk to people about him, and even go to his gravesite without breaking down. Now that I'm in college, I chose a profession where I'm able to work with people with addictions and that need counseling, hoping that I could save other people from experiencing the pain I went through. An online friend of mine sent me her site when I told her about the experiences in the home I now live in. I find it so interesting, the work you are doing. I'm always afraid that people will think I'm crazy. I'm 47 years old and live in a home that was built in 1955. So many unusual things happen in the home. Whistling in one bedroom, a strong smell of perfume, and a white shoulder, even in my guest bedroom. The constant thinking someone's coming down the hall, day and night. The whistling is always early in the morning. The most eerie, unusual experience I had was when I was playing the piano. The hymn, Amazing Grace. It was as if someone had opened the back door and was standing in my living room beside me. Even the dog refused to go to the back hall and in the room, something she had never done before. Late, I told the daughter-in-law about the experience. She said that was the doctor's favorite tunes. I also asked her if he whistled a lot. She said, every morning. The house was lived in by he, his first wife, his second wife, and his sister. He died in the master bedroom. The first wife died in the middle bedroom, and the sister-in-law died in my now computer room. Her scent, of course, white shoulders. I moved to this town. The house been on the market for 4 years because of its reputation. Nothing bad happened. In fact, it is rather comforting sometimes, but at times unexpected. The really only bad thing that happened was that one of my Civil War plates, collector's plates, came crashing down while the others were still fine. I guess the doctor really can't stand liking General Grant. Anyway, thanks for letting me share my story. I've long avoided writing to someone about this experience. Reason being is I'm a skeptic and don't want to rush to judgment. To this very day, we have no idea what caused the ruckus, so anything is possible, I guess. The experience actually happened to my mother, not me. I tried to recall it to the best of my memory from what she told me. This happened over a year ago, May of 1999. We had moved into a brand new house. No one else had ever lived in it, and it was a newly developed area a month before. One morning, I got up as the norm, getting ready for work, and waiting for my mom to finish. All of a sudden, very unlike her, she poked her head out really quick and asked if anything fell or broke in my room. I told her that everything seemed fine, nothing out of the ordinary. Then, all of a sudden she blurts out that we must have a ghost then. I must have gotten pale. Reason being is since moving into our home, I've gotten back into looking up info on the supernatural. That's how I even came across this site. In fact, the night of the incident, I'd been reading stories, looking at photos, etc. It just felt like a really weird coincidence. Anyway, I asked her what had happened. Apparently, the night before, she had her back to her doorway, reading a book in bed, trying to fall asleep. I was already fast asleep in my room, with the door closed, when all of a sudden, she heard a massive crash. I'm an extremely sound sleeper, so I never heard it. She jumped out of bed, thinking her cat had knocked down a plant or something. He was constantly getting into things. When she came out, she looked all over, and couldn't find anything wrong. Since the weather was nice, I knew she had her window open, and asked if maybe it came from outside. She said she had thought of that, but the noise came distinctly from inside the house. She said it didn't sound like it came from the way of the window. We also didn't have anything outside that would have caused the noise. Our garage is full of all sorts of stuff she brought back after father passed on. Grandma was gone a year before him. I thought maybe something crashed in there, which to be honest, would surprise me. We had stuff packed in there as well. She said maybe so, though she was still doubtful on it. But still, the noise was extremely loud, and she remembers that, to this day. Since then, we've been in the garage milling around, and never have come across anything down or destroyed. We never have figured out the source of the noise. We've never had any other experience happen since. I'm still very skeptical as to what happened. When I was a young youth, I remember seeing ghosts for much of my life. My wife, who is an avid ghost enthusiast, said to me, "Is it my life if a ghost dies?" I told her no. And you should probably like, comment, subscribe if you do like ghost stories and you listen to Phantom of Darkness and want to really share your opinion of him. I said to my wife, "Okay, so you understand that, right? You'll listen to Phantom?" My wife responded with a blank look on her face. "Who the hell is Phantom of Darkness?" "Oh, well, I just explained, but I'll explain to you again. He's just some random guy on the internet who tells stories. He only has 11,000 subscribers, so you probably don't know him." "Oh, so you want to fight?" said the wife. And then we got in an argument, and she made me sleep on the couch. Now, I don't get any action from her. You see, my wife got mad at me, because on top of everything that I've done to her, being nice to her and being her wife, husband, I just didn't know what to say. I was scrambled. I thought I was the greatest man in the world, but somehow my life came apart. So, don't ever try to be a hipster saying you don't know who Phantom of Darkness is. That's extremely rude, and especially don't say that to your wife, if you have one. I don't know, guys. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. Like I said, comment, like, share, and subscribe to this video. That's all I really have to say. I don't want to keep this too long, but I appreciate your viewership as all. And guys, I got a Patreon. I finally did it. A little hesitant, like I said before, but you guys wanted one. You wanted me to set one up, and you don't have to feel obligated or anything. Just you can pledge if you want. Otherwise, no big deal. Like no hesitation whatsoever is needed about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. It's just there, guys. So if you want to support me, you can. I'm not going to push it because that would be really weird. And you guys have your own money that you need to keep yourself. So please. I just set it up, for the hell of it, just in case, I guess, you guys wanted to. But you know what? No big deal if you don't. I'm still making videos either way. But anyway, guys, love you, and I'll see you in the next video.